Harumi Kazuhito is a high school student who lives alone in his small apartment in Tokyo. He is obsessed with a best-selling writer, Akiyama Shinobu, whose gender and identity are unknown. Kazuhito is a huge fan of her famous book series, The Deadly Sins, and is waiting for the highly anticipated last book of the series called Lust. One day, while Kazuhito is sitting at a cafe, he notices his wallet is gone, and before he can find it, he sees a man with a gun, threatening the cafe owner to hand over all his money. The robber then threatens Kazuhito and another female customer to stand up and raise their hands. While Kazuhito stands up in fear, the girl continues sitting at her table and writing something which aggravates the robber. The robber tries to shoot her, but Kazuhito tries to save her and gets shot instead. As Kazuhito dies, he suddenly starts hallucinating and floating in colorful, imaginative surroundings. He sees a dog in a bubble and touches it, due to which he gets pulled into the bubble. Kazuhito wakes up in a pet store and realizes that he has been reincarnated as a dog. He finds it hard to adjust to his new life, considering he can't do what he loves the most, reading books. Kazuhito asks the pet store owner to let him read, but the owner can only hear him barking. He soon realizes that he has now turned into a stray dog found and kept by the shop owner. A few days later, a girl walks into the pet shop and asks the owner to sell him the dog, Kazuhito. Kazuhito instantly recognizes her as the woman he saved at the cafe when he died. After the owner denies selling the dog to anyone, the woman cuts the cage with a pair of scissors, scaring the owner, and she then takes Kazuhito to her home. The woman ties Kazuhito up in a dark room and threatens to tear him up with a scissor without any reason. As Kazuhito tries to talk to her, she only hears him bark, but she reveals that she can hear his thoughts. The woman claims that Kazuhito has been calling her name from the pet store for days. She then introduces herself as Matsuno and keeps telling Kazuhito that she wants to kill him. Kazuhito then thinks about the cafe incident, trying to tell Natsuno how he died saving her. After learning this, Natsuno feels guilty. She leaves to take a shower without saying anything and comes back wearing lingerie. She tries to seduce Kazuhito with her outfit, but Kazuhito shows zero interest and instead mocks her for having a flat chest. Natsuno suddenly becomes sweet and asks Kazuhito to make himself feel at home, which confuses him. Kazuhito questions Natsuno's sudden change in attitude but accepts her offer since he has nowhere to go as a dog. Natsuno takes Kazuhito on her house tour and also shows her huge library, exciting him. Kazuhito also realizes that Natsuno has an expensive-looking place. Natsuno then mentions that she heard Kazuhito call her name repetitively from the pet store, revealing that her pen name is Akiyama Shinobu. Kazuhito jumps in surprise, having a fan moment after learning that Natsuno is actually his favorite author. As Kazuhito lives with Natsuno, he notices that she is obsessed with writing and is good at everything, such as cooking, cleaning, martial arts, and other sports. Natsuno discloses that she acquired more skills and tried different fields to gain inspiration for her writings that could relate to every kind of audience and sound more interesting. Later, Kazuhito is watching the news when he sees a news channel broadcasting his death and information about the killer, who still hasn't been caught. Kazuhito then sees the anchor standing outside his Sumiya Hall apartment and remembers his room number 101, where he had his favorite book collection. He also thinks about his wallet that he remembers losing on the day of his death. On the other hand, Natsuno was able to hear Kazuhito's thoughts, learns about his address. She then calls someone on the phone and instructs them to gather all information on Kazuhito. The caller tells her that Kazuhito's apartment number is 102 and not 101. The following day, Natsuno takes Kazuhiko for a walk and passes by the same afro-wearing pet store owner. Kazuhito is happy to see him, but Natsuno's intimidating presence frightens him. As the two walk further, they encounter a flashy blonde girl surrounded by bodyguards who use spotlights to make her even more noticeable. The girl desires attention towards her shining appearance, but feels insulted when she sees Natsuno walking past her without even noticing her. Before she can confront Natsuno for ignoring her, one of her bodyguards drags her away. Continuing their walk, the two pass by the Honda bookstore, one of Kazuhito's favorite places. Natsuno hears Kazuhito's thoughts and asks if he wants to go in, but Kazuhito declines. During the walk, Kazuhito urges Natsuno to finish the last book from The Deadly Sins, Lust, but she explains that she lacks inspiration. Eventually, Natsuno takes Kazuhito to his old apartment building named Sumiya Hall. Kazuhito is confused about why they came there, but Natsuno doesn't reveal much. On inquiry, Kazuhito reveals that the apartment building is owned by a distant relative of his who let him live there for free in exchange for looking after room 102, which serves as a storage space. Kazuhito discovered the neighboring room 101 empty and thus made it his book storage secret room while officially living in room 102. Natsuno unlocks room 102 with a ring full of keys, explaining that her sister, a policewoman, provided her with access to all the apartments in Sumiya Hall. Inside room 102, Natsuno tells Kazuhito that she believes the man who killed him found his wallet, which had a key to room 101. As nobody is known to be living in room 101, Natsuno thinks it's worth investigating both rooms. Suddenly, they hear a rattling noise and go outside to see Kazuhito's murderer leaving room 101. Upon seeing them, the murderer starts running, but Natsuno and Kazuhito follow him. When they catch up to him on an overpass, the man attacks Natsuno. She notices him wielding one of the books from her The Deadly Sin series. After Natsuno gets up, the murderer takes out another book from the same series and takes a fighting stance, declaring that he won't be caught until he reads the final book of the Deadly Sin series. As Kazuhito hears the man's words, he realizes that the man must have read all of Natsuno's books while hiding in room 101, and those books changed him. Suddenly, Natsuno charges at the man, and the two continue fighting. Kazuhito notices that both she and her opponent are using the Nameless Fist, the fighting style Natsuno created for the book series. Another one of Natsuno's books talks about a hypnotic move that the murderer uses, revealing that he has read all of Natsuno's books and is a fan of the author Akiyama Shinobu. The murderer successfully hypnotizes Natsuno and uses her own books to attack her. During the fight, Natsuno uses one of her book's fighting tricks and skillfully cuts open the man's pockets, causing 2 more of her books to fall to the ground. Distracted by the desperation to get the books back, the man is caught off guard, and Natsuno seizes all 6 books from him. She knocks him out with a kick, and he ends up hanging over the overpass's railing. Natsuno suggests Kazuhito push the murderer over the overpass to take revenge, claiming that his dog pushing the body won't make him sinful or morally wrong. However, Kazuhito surprises her by taking the man down to safety instead, expressing that he doesn't seek revenge. He believes killing the man wouldn't transform him back into a human. He also fears that seeking revenge might actually kill him too, and he can't die without reading the Deadly Sin's last book. Despite Kazuhito's understanding response, Natsuno remains unsatisfied and desires to kill the man herself due to the stress she feels and the guilt she holds for Kazuhito's death, as he died protecting her in the cafe while she kept writing her book. Kazuhito reassures her, saying that it's not her fault that he protected her. In fact, he did what he wanted to do at that moment. Having read so much of her writing, he understands her completely and believes she would do the same in his situation. Moved by his words, Natsuno starts crying and gives up on killing Kazuhito's murderer. Later that night, as they walk home, Natsuno confesses to Kazuhito that she has strange feelings towards him but struggles to express them. She also feels motivated to continue writing her next book. Kazuhito sees a dream of his sister, Harubi Madoka, and the fierce Natsuno, which becomes more like a nightmare. Kazuhito wakes up and sees a strange woman sitting at the table with her head down. The woman starts acting weirdly, naming gods and demonic fictional characters, which scares Kazuhito. Kazuhito deduces that the woman can also understand him and can hear his thoughts. As he tries to communicate with her, she continues to act strangely. Suddenly, Natsuno enters the room and Kazuhito feels safer that she will defend him from the demonic woman. However, to his surprise, the two women start conversing normally, and he finds out that the strange woman's name is Suzuna Hayaraji, and she is Natsuno's book editor. Suzuna tells Natsuno that her latest writing is terrible, and that she needs to work more on it, which surprises Kazuhito since he has been seeing Natsuno work tirelessly. Suzuna points out to Natsuno that she is in a slump and needs writing inspiration. The argument then goes sideways when Suzuna talks about Natsuno's flat chest, which provokes her to use the pair of scissors on the editor. While this stuns Kazuhito, he is taken aback to see Suzuna appreciating and worshipping Natsuno for using her esteemed scissors on her, decoding that she is also a masochist who likes to be threatened and abused by Natsuno. Kazuhito remembers how Natsuno had a writing boost and came out of the slump when she was investigating his murder. His mind clicks, and he deduces that Natsuno needs such dangerous and criminally unusual situations to help her brain get working for more ideas and inspiration. As Suzuna leaves, she warns Natsuno to beware of a local criminal called Slasher, who has attacked many victims in the town. Kazuhito asks Natsuno about her slump and realizes that the slump came upon her 3 months ago, ever since Kazuhito got shot and came to her. Natsuno blames Kazuhito for her slump and cuts him with her pair of scissors as a punishment. After a while, Suzuna visits again and informs her about the Slasher's reappearance and how all the victims were stabbed while walking at night. Natsuno suggests Suzuna use herself as bait and lure the Slasher, as she would reward her with abuse if she catches him for her. Excitedly, Suzuna accepts the task and happily goes on a hunt to find the Slasher to please Natsuno. On the other hand, Natsuno herself decides to investigate despite her policeman sister asking her to stay out of it. Kazuhito follows her as they embark on their new investigation. As they walk on the streets to investigate, they visit the Honda bookstore, where they meet Sakura, the owner's daughter, who works at the counter, and her little sister, Yeo, who takes an interest in Kazuhito. Natsuno asks Sakura about the Slasher and learns about a girl who defended herself using one of Akiyama Shinobu's books as a weapon. Sakura's father also reveals that another person was attacked after buying one of Akiyama's books. After leaving the store, they encounter a man who tells them that the Slasher assaulted his colleague after reading one of Akiyama Shinobu's books in a cafe. Natsuno and Kazuhito connect the dots and realize that all the victims and crimes of the Slasher are connected to Akiyama's books. As they continue to walk, a shining blonde girl appears again, trying to gain attention in many ways. Upon inquiry, Kazuhito learns that the self-obsessed blonde woman is Maxi Akazuki, a charismatic celebrity idol who is also a best-selling author alongside Natsuno and another writer named Himheiji. Natsuno despises Maxi for constantly following her, while Maxi aims to prove her superiority and purposely get Natsuno's attention to brag about her success on a fellow competitor's face. However, Natsuno continues to stick to her own life and ignores Maxi. In an attempt to grab Natsuno's attention, Maxi taunts her for having a flat chest, then proceeds to flex her own breasts. This provokes Natsuno as she is ready to deal with Maxi, but the confrontation is cut short by Maxi's bodyguard, who drags her away and stops her from getting involved in any other activity. As Kazuhito and Natsuno continue to walk on the streets to investigate, they hear a commotion and find out that the pet store owner is attacked by the slasher, but is unharmed. Natsuno looks around the crowd and spots a suspicious person. She chases him as he escapes. Meanwhile, Kazuhito finds a book from the Deadly Sins series in an empty alley and attempts to grab it, but unfortunately, he gets caught in a trap. Kazuhito goes into a flashback and remembers how his sister once tried reading the Akiyama book series to connect with her brother over his love for the books. In the present, Kazuhito wakes up tied up in his old apartment and is surprised to see his sister, Madoka, who somehow recognizes him as her brother despite his current form as a dog. Kazuhito remembers his time as a human and how he spent most of his time fascinated by books. Madoka, on the other hand, was incredibly talented and popular, except for her terrible cooking skills. Kazuhito realizes that Madoka can hear his thoughts, giving him hope to return to his family and escape Natsuno. However, he soon discovers that Madoka is only pretending to be able to communicate with him and cannot actually hear him. Before Kazuhito died, Madoka wished for him to move back to the countryside with their parents, but she couldn't convince him, and now she feels guilty for not taking better care of him. Her desire to protect Kazuhito has become twisted, and she's become obsessed with him, behaving like a maniac. Madoka expresses her wish for him to stay with her forever, which horrifies Kazuhito. She even tries to feed him some disgusting-looking spicy chili curry, but Kazuhito desperately dodges her spoon. When Madoka leaves to get pickles for her curry, Natsuno finds Kazuhito and takes him home. Natsuno wants revenge on Madoka for kidnapping Kazuhito, but he explains that Madoka is his sister. Natsuno becomes embarrassed at the thought of Madoka being her sister-in-law if she were to marry Kazuhito. Suspicions over Madoka deepen when they realize she baited Kazuhito using Natsuno's book, making Natsuno consider her as the possible slasher. Although Kazuhito disagrees, he agrees to accompany Natsuno to investigate further. The next day, they search for Madoka around Sumiya Hall but fail to find her. They come across Suzume, who informs Natsuno that the slasher appeared again, leading to Natsuno degrading her, much to Suzuna's amusement. Suzuna falls on her knees with happiness as Natsuno continues to degrade her for giving information about Slasher. Suzuna also shares new information about a girl spotted in the park the previous night, cutting up Akiyama Shinobu's books and crying. She describes the girl's appearance, claiming she had short hair which fit Madoka perfectly. Kazuhito recognizes the description as his sister and becomes concerned while visiting the park. There, Natsuno and Kazuhito find scraps of paper burnt on the ground. Suddenly, Madoka appears, happy to see Kazuhito again. Natsuno tells her that the one she's calling her brother is actually her dog, leading to an argument between them. Madoka confirms that she destroyed the books the night before to lure her brother in. The two women start getting into a heated fight when Kazuhito stands in between to prevent it. In response, Natsuno throws a smoke bomb and she disappears with Kazuhito back to her apartment. At the apartment, Natsuno talks to Kazuhito and tells him that she believes that Madoka is the slasher. She suspects that Madoka thought Akiyama Shinobu was stealing her beloved brother away from her and felt that her books were more important to him than his sister. Natsuno further suggests that Madoka might have become mentally unstable after Kazuhito's death, leading her to lose control and blame Akiyama and her books for his death, since the books were the reason he stayed in Tokyo. Hearing this, Kazuhito realizes that he is too scared to think about how his family feels about his death. However, he chooses to believe that Madoka isn't actually the slasher and vows that if she is, he will stop her himself. He asks Natsuno for help, expressing his trust and respect for her. Natsuno assures him that she's ready to do her best to help. Suddenly, Madoka crashes through the window and grabs Kazuhito. She reveals that she placed a tracking device on Kazuhito to locate him. Natsuno then discloses herself as Akiyama Shinobu, the author who Madoka despises. She tells her that she witnessed Kazuhito's death, who died protecting her from a robber's attack. Despite Madoka's reluctance to listen, Natsuno tells her that Kazuhito would be unhappy with her actions. Although Madoka realizes she's right, she still avoids confronting her feelings and escapes by jumping out of the window, stealing the dog. Upon landing, Madoka admits to Kazuhito that she doesn't truly believe the dog is him. After his death, Madoka searched his neighborhood in Tokyo, hoping to find him. She set a trap using one of Kazuhito's favorite books, thinking only her brother would fall for it. Feeling like a terrible sister, Madoka cries guilty that she disappointed and failed her dead brother. However, Kazuhito sees her as the best sister in the world, but he has no way to communicate this to her. Suddenly, Natsuno arrives, revealing she also used a tracking device on Kazuhito. Preparing to fight, Madoka takes out a strange electric knife called Tuna Eater, which she bought through mail order, as she always cooked for Kazuhito with that particular knife. Kazuhito was surprised he hadn't seen it before. Natsuno then reveals her pair of scissors, and the two engage in a battle, initially seeming equally matched. However, Madoka activates her genocide mode, transforming her knife into a chainsaw. Madoka's weapon becomes more powerful, but Natsuno manages to dodge all her attacks. Eventually, Madoka's chainsaw gets stuck in a tree, allowing Natsuno to cut off its blades. Madoka then activates Destroy Mode, turning the Tuna Eater into a cannon. When she shoots the strange cannon at Natsuno, Natsuno skillfully cuts the bullet in half, causing it to explode behind her. Unable to believe her eyes, Madoka drops to her knees in defeat. After the fight, Natsuno and Madoka start getting along and have a more normal conversation. Madoka confesses that she cut up Natsuno's books because Kazuhito warned her against selling them to bookstores, as it deprives the author of royalties. When Natsuno questions Madoka about her involvement in the slasher incidents, Madoka denies any connection. Later, Kazuhito sees Suzuma outside the apartment building and suspects that much of the information about the slasher came from Suzuna herself, speculating that she may have paid people to lie to them. He believes her motive was to pull him out of this slump by putting him in a dangerous situation. Suzuna admits the truth when confronted by Kazuhito and expresses her willingness to do anything for the sake of Natsuno and her books. However, Kazuhito warns her not to interfere with Natsuno's writing process. Suzuna sees how much connection and bond Natsuno and Kazuhito have built, and in amusement, she wonders what kind of story Natsuno would write if the dog were to die. She leaves, claiming Kazuhito has no proof of her involvement in the slasher incident until Natsuno herself appears, having overheard the entire conversation and exposes Suzuna's lies. Natsuno reveals that she had already overcome her slump on her own a day earlier, unrelated to the incident Suzuna made up. Natsuno warns her that she'll be kind to Suzuna if she refrains from interfering, which horrifies Suzuna. The following day, Natsuno meets Madoka just before she boards her train to return home. In their conversation, Natsuno agrees to let Madoka call her dog Kazuhito, which makes Madoka happy. After Madoka leaves, Kazuhito wonders what ultimately became of the real slasher. Just then, Suzuna shows up and discloses that she had a confrontation with the slasher and defeated him on the very night Natsuno instructed her to capture him. Kazuhito visits Honda booksellers to pick up some of his favorite books, pretending as if Natsuno sent him to collect the books for her. He rushes to Sakura to give him the books fast before Yaoi arrives, as he fears she will cuddle and tickle him. His fear comes true as Yaoi enters the store and grabs Kazuhito tightly, playing with him. As Yaoi plays their favorite dog, she reveals that she will have to leave the town soon. Upon returning to the apartment, Kazuhito confides in Natsuno about what Yaoi said, fearing that the family might be closing the store and leaving. However, Natsuno doesn't seem too concerned about it and brushes it off as she continues to work on her writing. Kazuhito forces Natsuno to listen to the emotional story of his bond with the Honda bookstore, but Natsuno ignores him. Nevertheless, Kazuhito decides to narrate his past and how he discovered the bookstore. In a flashback, Kazuhito narrates that when he first moved to Tokyo, he was supposed to meet the Sumiya Hall manager, but instead stumbled upon the bookstore and was immediately drawn inside. Inside the store, he witnessed a rude old woman complaining to Sakura about the supposedly boring books they were selling, including one by Akiyama Shinobu. Kazuhito couldn't stand by, so he passionately defended the book and gave a lengthy speech in the book's defense. Unknown to him, the old woman disappeared during his long monologue. At that moment, the store owner arrived, assuming Kazuhito was causing trouble for his daughter. However, Sakura cleared that Kazuhito actually saved the situation. Both Sakura and her father were grateful for his help, and as a token of appreciation, the store owner allowed Kazuhito to choose a free book. The owner observed Kazuhito's selection of books and was immediately impressed by him, offering him discount coupons and gift cards for the store. Kazuhito established a strong bond with the owner due to his passion for rare books. The flashback ends as Kazuhito finishes narrating his tale. He realizes that Natsuno fell asleep at some point during his story. He feels relieved that Natsuno cannot hear his thoughts while asleep, so he starts making fun of her flat chest. To his surprise, Natsuno wakes up and hears all his thoughts, punishing him with scissors and cutting his hair. The following day, Kazuhito visits the Honda bookstore and witnesses an argument between Yaoi and her sister, Sakura. In frustration, Yaoi runs away, taking Kazuhito along. They eventually stop at a playground, where Yaoi opens up about her concern for the store's future, revealing that the store is being closed, but Sakura seems unconcerned about it. Yaoi cares deeply because she fears it will lead to the family falling apart. In a bid to save the store, Yaoi decides to take matters into her own hands and starts promoting Honda booksellers with Kazuhito's help, wearing Honda bookstore banners on their heads. As they walk through the town, they encounter the shining Maxie again, who is as flashy as ever. Yayoi feels mesmerized by her glamour and joins her group. Yayoi then tells Maxie about her situation, hoping for support. However, Maxie offers to completely change the Honda store, making it brilliant and glamorous like her. Yayoi, on the other hand, wants the store to remain simple as it always has been and runs away, feeling sad. At a park, Yayoi realizes that she can't find her way home anymore and Kazuhito offers to lead her there, but Yayoi can't understand him. Yayoi starts crying as she worries about the store and misses her family. Kazuhito tries to comfort Yayoi, but his inability to talk limits his options. Suddenly, Natsuno appears and accuses Kazuhito, making Yayoi cry. When Natsuno asks Yayoi what's wrong, the little girl confesses that she doesn't want to go back home because she's afraid of Sakura being mad at her. Yayoi also feels guilty about telling Sakura that she hates her. Trying to console her, Natsuno suggests that she should apologize to her sister. Yayoi agrees and decides to go back to the store with Natsuno. Upon their return, Yayoi apologizes and Sakura warmly embraces her, expressing regret for their earlier argument. Sakura reveals that the store is not actually going to close, which Yayoi feared. Yayoi explains that she feared the store would close because she heard her parents arguing and fighting. She mistakenly believed they were going to get a divorce due to watching too much TV and seeing similar situations. Sakura clarifies that their parents' arguments are not as serious as Yayoi thought and assures her that everything will be fine. The next day, Natsuno seeks Kazuhito's help in finding her missing favorite black lace bra. She asks him to use his dog's sense of smell to find it, to which Kazuhito demands smelling her so he knows her smell. Natsuno lifts Kazuhito and hugs him so he can learn the smell, but the closeness leaves her flustered. Despite his efforts, Kazuhito fails to find the bra, leading Natsuno to ask Suzuna to join their search. Frustrated, Kazuhito eventually gives up and starts reading a book, but Natsuno insists on continuing the bra-finding quest. While the two argue, a cardboard box falls from a shelf, revealing a device for increasing breast size previously bought by Natsuno. The discovery leaves Natsuno utterly embarrassed, causing her to lash out at Kazuhito as usual. Natsuno visits the gym with Suzuna and Kazuhito, where she had exercised earlier that day, hoping to find the bra there. However, their efforts are in vain. On their way back, they encounter a bodybuilder named Munakata and his friends who are doing exercises. They offer Natsuno to join them for a bust-increasing workout, to which she agrees. Both Natsuno and Suzuna work out, but after finding out that the exercise is actually to reduce breasts and flatten them, they leave. Back at the apartment, Kazuhito starts reading a book and unexpectedly finds Natsuno's bra under the blanket he usually uses. He recalls that the night before, he was searching for something warm and must have accidentally taken Natsuno's bra in the process. Terrified of Natsuno's reaction, Kazuhito tries to hide the bra somewhere. When Natsuno and Suzuna return, it becomes apparent that Kazuhito attempted to go through Natsuno's bra drawer but failed, leading him to escape outside to look for a different solution. Meanwhile, as Natsuno searches for Kazuhito around town, she asks Sakura if she has seen him. Sakura denies any knowledge about Kazuhito and warns Natsuno to be careful since there have been a lot of traffic accidents recently. While Natsuno searches around the subway station, she becomes suspicious of someone following her. Meanwhile, Kazuhito attempts to bury the bra in a forest, but he encounters a strange maid dancing and singing. As she begins a monologue, Kazuhito realizes she is quoting a book by Momiji Hamhagi, one of the most popular young writers. After he sneezes, the maid notices him and becomes both embarrassed and furious. She decides to kill the dog for witnessing her embarrassing monologue. She transforms her broom into a weapon and starts attacking him. On the other hand, Natsuno, already concerned about Kazuhito, hears his thoughts about someone trying to kill him and rushes to find him. While trying to escape the angry maid, Kazuhito finds himself in the middle of traffic. He is almost hit by a truck when Natsuno comes to his rescue just in time. When the maid catches up to them on the road, Natsuno sees the spear in her hand and realizes she is attempting to harm her dog and prepares to fight. However, their fight is momentarily stopped when the maid hears a man selling roasted potatoes nearby. Assuming her mistress would enjoy them, she leaves Natsuno and goes to buy the potatoes. With the danger gone, Natsuno is relieved to see Kazuhito unharmed. Embarrassed, she notices he is carrying her bra, which has a dog decoration resembling a dachshund, the same breed as Kazuhito. Kazuhito realizes that Natsuno is fond of him as a dog, which is why her favorite bra has a dog made on it. Kazuhito thinks of a plan to win over Natsuno and decides to act like a cute dog to melt her heart. However, he forgets that Natsuno can hear his thoughts and thus knows he is faking his cute face to win her emotions. Natsuno becomes angry and threatens him with her scissors, punishing him for his attempt to manipulate her and play with her emotions. Natsuno takes Kazuhito to an unusual hot springs resort known for its blade-themed decor. Kazuhito, although initially disinterested, becomes thrilled upon discovering a shelf full of books, including one titled Celestial Romance that he has never seen before. He feels intrigued and looks forward to reading it. Madoka appears, and Kazuhito learns that Natsuno invited her along as she pictures Madoka becoming her future sister-in-law. It turns out that Natsuno is a frequent visitor to the inn and even has her own room called the Scissors Room. Decorated with blades, Kazuhito notices Natsuno holding a very small pink-colored book in her hand. Madoka tries to take Kazuhito to her room to sleep when Natsuno interrupts, declaring that he's staying with her, leading to an argument between the two. The tension is shortly broken when a phone alarm rings on Natsuno's phone, reminding the girls that it's time to bathe. They discover that Sakura from the bookstore and her friend Hami Osoa is also visiting the hot springs. After the bath, they all gather to eat together, while Natsuno secretly reads from her small book, which is a love guide on how to make the trip romantic. Natsuno had secretly planned the trip with Kazuhito to be as romantic as possible, but her plans haven't been successful so far. Her idea of a romantic dinner at sunset is hindered when Suzuna and her club, called Theme Associates Order, arrive at the inn for their yearly trip. During all this, a man secretly observes Natsuno without her knowledge, stalking her. That night, Natsuno plans to sleep side by side with Kazuhito, but upon seeing him asleep surrounded by books, she becomes angry and punishes him with her scissors. The next morning, Natsuno goes for a walk with Kazuhito, and they encounter the ever-shining Maxi again, whom they try to ignore. During Natsuno's visit to a whetstone shop, she encounters the maid she had almost fought the other day who tried to kill Kazuhito. During this encounter, they once again come close to fighting, but they end up bonding over their shared use of a particular brand of whetstone to sharpen their weapons. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Madoka faces difficulties preparing curry for Kazuhito without her tuna-eat knife. When Kazuhito and Natsuno return to the inn, Kazuhito notices that the maids are acting strangely, looking at them in a weird way. Natsuno then informs Kazuhito that she plans to sharpen her scissors in the bath, warning him not to peek, even though she secretly desires otherwise. In the bath, Natsuno is joined by Suzuna and Maxi, and they stay in the bath for too long, becoming dizzy. Meanwhile, Kazuhito returns to the scissors room and is terrified to find it destroyed and all the blades gone. Kazuhito searches around and sees a huge hurdle of the inn's staff behaving like hypnotized zombies approaching him carrying various weapons. To his surprise, they ignore him and head towards the women's bath, putting Natsuno in danger. Kazuhito manages to enter the bathing room just before the staff breaks in to save Natsuno and give her a heads up. A zombie staff barges in when Natsuno reveals that she has faced similar attacks before. Due to her dull scissors, which she needs to sharpen urgently, Natsuno fails to fight them properly. As the inn staff relentlessly attack, Kazuhito seeks help but realizes he can't rely on Suzuna or Maxi. Determined to protect Natsuno while she finishes sharpening her scissors, he finds himself in trouble trying to distract the staff. Luckily, Madoka arrives on time to save Kazuhito, carrying a tuna-eater gear she found in the inn's storage that work as a chainsaw. Natsuno also joins the fight with her sharpened scissors. Together, they fight off and defeat all the attackers, protecting Natsuno and the others. During the fight, Natsuno's love guide book gets trampled under the feet of the zombie staff, which angers her even more as she goes rogue and fights everyone. The next morning, the owner of the inn offers an apology for the previous day's events, but the staff claims to have no memory of what happened. Natsuno bids farewell and plans on returning to the inn with Kazuhito alone someday, believing that this time everything will go according to her plans. Natsuno and Kazuhito are searching for some good books at Honda booksellers when Sakura recommends an award-winning new book called Celestial Romance written by a new author named Hotaru. Intrigued, Natsuno decides to purchase it. Back at the apartment, Kazuhito senses that someone has broken in when he observes that in the collection of 90,000 plus books, there's one extra. Kazuhito hunts for the additional book in the library that wasn't there before, and it turns out to be a copy of Celestial Romance, the same book Natsuno had just bought. Natsuno suspects that her mysterious stalker might be the one who broke in, but there are no signs of forced entry. Both Kazuhito and Natsuno become curious about the book and start reading Celestial Romance. As Kazuhito finishes it first, he glances at Natsuno while she's reading and is suddenly attracted to her. Unable to control himself, he jumps on her, but she ends up tossing him into the trash can. After Natsuno finishes reading the book, she is surprised to find Kazuhito in the trash can, as she had been too engaged in the book to notice she had thrown him there. Kazuhito becomes nervous and tries not to admit that he is attracted to Natsuno. However, since she can read his thoughts, she discovers the truth and playfully teases him. When he jokingly admits to falling in love with her, Natsuno gets nervous. She becomes genuinely flustered and changes the topic. Kazuhito asks Natsuno about her thoughts on Celestial Romance, to which she replies that the book can't be the work of an amateur as it is written too well. They both notice Natsuno's own works heavily influence the book's style. Curious about this new mysterious Hotaru, Natsuno invites Suzuna to her apartment for further investigation and information. Natsuno uses her scissors and degrading skills to persuade Suzuna. Suzuna, being the editor to Hotaru, spills everything about her life and biodata, except for her real name. Natsuno discovers that Hotaru is a high school girl and her father is the famous historical novel writer Osawa Shuzen. Suzuna mentions rumors that Hotaru used her father's influence to make her get butt. With Suzuna's help, Natsuno finds Hotaru's address and decides to visit her with Kazuhiko. Surprisingly, the address is the same as Kazuhiko's former high school town. He recalls going to a bookstore in that area during exams to buy one of Natsuno's books. He admits that Natsuno was more important to him than the exams, making Natsuno flustered. However, when he clarifies that he meant her books and not her personally, she beats him up. Meanwhile, a mysterious man is secretly following them. Kazuhito leads Natsuno through a warehouse as a shortcut to his school. Natsuno senses that they are surrounded when regular townspeople appear, acting like zombies similar to those at the Hot Springs Inn. Natsuno throws Kazuhito at the zombie people to distract them and then defeats all the attackers. Suddenly, the man who was following them alleges out of the dark to confront Natsuno. When he removes his hat, Kazuhito recognizes him as the famous author Osawa Shuzen. Natsuno quickly ties Shuzen up and interrogates him, but he remains angry even in defeat. Shuzen then reveals that he indeed broke into Natsuno's apartment using his connection to the owner of a security company. He adds that he was asked by his daughter to give the book she had written to Shinobu Akiyama. Natsuno questions why he broke in and hid the book so secretively when he could have simply mailed it, but Shuzen reveals he didn't want to hand it over or have her read it. He sees Natsuno as a bad influence on his daughter and dislikes Natsuno's books. Natsuno realizes that Shuzen wasn't the culprit who sent the zombie-like people after her and understands that he lied to protect his daughter, even though he can't convince her otherwise. Shuzen indirectly admits that his daughter might have been behind the incident and wants to meet Akiyama Shinobu for some reason. Learning this, Natsuno decides to visit Hotaru, who is at the high school. Upon arriving late at night at the high school with Kazuhito, Natsuno goes to look for Hotaru, leaving Kazuhito to explore freely. Kazuhito goes to the school library, where he used to spend a lot of time reminiscing about the past. While searching behind some books, he discovers a manuscript he was looking for. Suddenly, Hami appears and somehow recognizes him as Kazuhito. Kazuhito realizes that Hami is actually Hotaru, the writer behind everything. A flashback starts about how Kazuhito had found Hami's manuscript and started reading it. Upon noticing him, Hami became extremely embarrassed and tried to escape. However, Kazuhito stopped her and expressed his desire to read the rest of it. Hami was an extremely shy and negative girl, so Kazuhito encouraged her, telling her that her story was heavily influenced by Shinobu Akiyama, but still interesting and evident that she wrote what she wanted. He encouraged her to complete it thoroughly and even suggested submitting it to a contest, but Hami struggled with low self-esteem, fearing it would be a waste of judges' time. She had never thought she could become an author, but when Kazuhito expressed his desire to read more of her work, it made her happy. She promised to become an author and asked him to be her first reader. In the present, Hami explains to Kazuhito that her pen name Hotaru is an anagram of his name Kazuhito Harumi. Although Kazuhito is in the body of a dog, Hami seems to understand somehow that it is him. Sakura's story about a dog coming to buy books every day led Hami to believe that the dog must be Kazuhito. When she witnessed him finding her manuscript hidden behind books in the library, she became sure it was him, as only the two of them knew about where she hid it. She informs him that she fulfilled her promise and became a legitimate author, though she had to use her father's influence to get published. She confesses that she could never finish her first novel, the one Kazuhito read during high school, making her feel like a fake writer because of the support of her father. To truly become a genuine writer, she wants to overcome the influence of Shinobu Akiyama, who impacted her writing the most. Hami decides to defeat Natsuno to make her own position. Hami leaves an announcement on the school speaker system for Natsuno, calling her to the roof and using her dog as bait. Natsuno goes to the roof and is ready to throw hands when Hami suggests a peaceful war to decide who is the better writer. They agree to settle their dispute with a writing contest, the winner being the first author to write a 100-page-long story. During the contest, both authors write at an incredible speed. However, Hami faces challenges as she starts writing with 2 pens, and her hand soon becomes cramped, forcing her to stop. During their contest, Hami uses various Osawa-style techniques, distracting methods mentioned in the Osawa's books to hinder Natsuno, but none work as Natsuno remains in the lead. Hami gets tired and oddly takes a break, asking Natsuno what she thought of her book Celestial Romance, to which she replies that it wasn't bad. This gives Hami the signal as she presses a button, transforming the library into a hall of mirrors. Suddenly, Natsuno grasps her scissors and attempts to stab herself with them, but barely manages to resist. Hami then reveals that Celestial Romance contained certain hypnotic keywords that compelled readers to kill a woman with red eyes dressed in black and carrying scissors, which represented Natsuno. This Osawa writing technique did not work on everyone, but it worked on people who randomly attacked Natsuno in the past. Hami continues the writing contest while Natsuno rebels with her other hand to stop stabbing her. In a turn of events, Natsuno takes the pen in her mouth and continues writing her story at a remarkable speed. She finishes her last page just before Hami can do it, leading Hami to lose badly. Hami feels defeated and raises her pen to stab herself, but Kazuhito interrupts, giving her the manuscript of her first novel and encouraging her to keep writing. Natsuno reveals that Shuzan said Hami didn't get published because of him, as he lied about using his contacts. This meant that Hami's novel was indeed genuine. Natsuno acknowledges her talent, explaining that there's no such thing as a fake writer, as all writers want their work to be read. She reminds Hami that Kazuhito and her other readers are eagerly anticipating her books, inspiring Hami to continue writing. Finally, Hami asks Kazuhito if he will read her next book, and he responds with a bark of agreement, cheering her up. Kazuhito informs Hami that he wants to write her next book. The next day, Natsuno brings Hami to her apartment together so the teacher and pupil can practice writing together. Meanwhile, Kazuhito reads a new book written by Natsuno. It turns out that Natsuno has embedded hypnotic suggestions in her latest book, using the Osawa-style technique to compel Kazuhito to make a move on her. This works as Kazuhito feels his paws moving towards Kazuhito involuntarily. Madoka visits Natsuno's place for a stay as she appears for the entrance exam at Higashikawa High School. She plans to prepare some curry for Kazuhito. To his horror, she brings out her tuna-eater chainsaw machine and starts cooking something strange in the kitchen. Despite Kazuhito's suspicions, he is surprised to find that the food she's cooking actually smells good. He expresses his pride that his sister has finally learned to cook and that he will happily try the curry. However, when he peers into the pot, he sees a bizarre bright blue stew inside and runs away to avoid eating the curry. Kazuhito visits Honda bookstore but gets trapped by Sakura's little sister, Yayoi, playfully fluffing him, which he hates. While he stays at the store, he observes Sakura's work as a bookstore worker and feels proud of how well she handles it. He sees different types of customers coming in and buying books that Sakura specifically ordered according to their tastes and liking. Suddenly, Maxi's bodyguards enter the store and purchase all the books by Akiyama Shinobu and Momiji Himhagi, the two best-selling authors alongside Maxi herself. Kazuhito decides to follow them to investigate. As he makes his way out, he sees a woman who resembles the Sumiya Hall manager. Meanwhile, Natsuno searches for Kazuhito outside. Kazuhito loses the bodyguard's trail and ends up in a park where he spots the red-haired maid he had encountered before seeing once again. The maid notices him looking at her again and attempts to kill him for seeing her, but thanks to Natsuno's repetitive scissor attacks, Kazuhito is now used to dodging. He manages to escape her broom spear, Zapper of Corruption. Natsuno appears and blocks the maid's spear, engaging in a fierce blade fight with her scissors. They prove to be equally matched. The maid reveals that she has been in hundreds of battles and introduces herself as Morebu Saki, the former ace from a special service agency. However, she now works solely for her beloved mistress as a maid in disguise. Before they can continue their battle, a helicopter appears, playing a familiar song, interrupting them. It turns out to be the ever-shining Maxi who makes an announcement declaring her arrival to settle the score with Natsuno. She is offended because her books are displayed alongside Akiyama Shinobu and Momiji Himhagi. She suddenly unveils a huge figure covered in cloth, revealing a 9-story statue. Maxi announces that she has bought out all their books and plans to hold a 9-story tower writing contest to determine the brightest shining author in the world. Participants must write 9 short stories and will be judged by 9 judges. Suddenly, Saki charges Maxi while climbing the tower. Maxi's bodyguards make a barrier to protect her, but Saki uses her spear and effortlessly defeats them all, tearing all their clothes off. When Seki reaches Maxi, she surprises everyone by revealing that she is actually Himhagi's maid. On the top of the tower, Natsuno, Maxi, and Saki face each other, preparing for the writing competition with intense passion. However, before they can start, Maxi gets dragged away by one of her bodyguards, leaving Kazuhito disappointed that the anticipated writing competition of the 3 best authors did not occur. At the Honda bookstore, Natsuno and Kazuhito encounter Hami. Hami builds up a lot of courage and finally announces that she is ready to become a real author. Her friend Sakura expresses her pride in her and motivates her, while Natsuno appreciates her courage to take the step and publish her new book. Suddenly, Madoka enters the store and happily shares that she passed her high school entrance exams despite her parents' objections. Madoka decided to enroll in a high school in Tokyo and move to a dormitory there, wanting to live her life to the fullest for her deceased brother Kazuhito, who was also studying in Tokyo. Upon hearing Madoka's good news, Kazuhito feels proud of his sister and reluctantly agrees to try the curry she made. Back at the apartment, Madoka serves a rainbow-colored curry with frogs in it while Kazuhito tries his best to avoid it. Madoka spoon-feeds Kazuhito her weird curry as he forces himself to eat it. One day, Suzuna visits Natsuno and finds her deeply engaged in her writing. She tells Kazuhito that Natsuno hides her identity because she began writing as a middle schooler and didn't want readers to judge her books based on that fact. However, Suzuna believes that Natsuno's reputation is now strong enough to reveal herself to the public. Suzuna suggests that if Natsuno appears on TV shows or interacts more with other writers, she might find inspiration to finish her The Deadly Sin series. Suzuna expressed her other motive, becoming Natsuno's professional producer and styling her in cute clothes. Using her special editing technique, magic, Suzuna dresses Natsuno in various outfits without her noticing or being disturbed from writing. She puts on different costumes such as a cultural outfit, a maiden outfit, and a sexy playboy outfit. Eventually, she tries to make her wear a school swimsuit, but Natsuno catches Suzuna messing with her and punishes her with her scissors. As this plan fails, Suzuna comes with a backup and decides to get Natsuno drunk to see how she'll behave. She believes that Natsuno's drunk self might be kinder, making her more presentable to the public. Using another editing technique, magic, Suzuna sneakily adds alcohol to Natsuno's cup, and she drinks it. Natsuno becomes completely drunk and starts being nice to Kazuhiko, proving Suzuna's theory. She completely transformed from a cold-hearted evil woman to a nice-spirited, sweet girl. However, when Natsuno begins acting nice towards Suzuna, she is horrified at not getting the abuse she craves. To provoke Natsuno into violence again, Suzuna makes her drink even more. Surprisingly, Natsuno's mood gets even happier, and she tells Suzuna that she loves her, causing Suzuna to collapse on the floor in disappointment. Natsuno cuddles Kazuhiko and remains unbothered even when he mentions her flat chest. He continues talking about it, but Natsuno becomes self-conscious rather than angry. Feeling sorry for her, Kazuhiko reassures her that the size of her breasts doesn't matter, which fills Natsuno with joy. She imagines a future with him, including their wedding with all the guests, including Madoka, Hami, Sakura, Maxi, Haji, and others. She then imagines a honeymoon getaway on a Hawaiian beach where they all enjoy themselves together and everyone praises the couple. Natsuno even imagined picking the color of their baby's room, much to Kazuhito's horror. Afterward, Natsuno brings Kazuhiko to her bed intending to show kindness. However, she starts feeling sick and ends up vomiting all over Kazuhiko. The next day, Natsuno returns to her usual self, realizing he smells like vomit. Natsuno surprises Kazuhito with genuine kindness by offering to bathe him. Sometime later, Natsuno gives Kazuhito her newest book to read, but to his surprise, it's only a plot summary despite being as thick as a regular book. Kazuhito tells her it's too long and advises her to focus on finishing the last volume of The Deadly Sin series. Calling her flat-chested, Kazuhito unknowingly angers her, leading Natsuno to attack him with her scissors.